Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Moore. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, once again, we're here. We asked the listeners for questions, and great news, they were not messing around this week.
No, they did not mess around. They just got down.
They did indeed. So first one from @Baseball21 Sam. Will Matt Patricia unleash Arvell Reese considering Carson Beck isn't that mobile? Does feel like they aren't using him to the fullest of his capabilities. I know I'm being spoiled. I do think a lot of how they've used Arvell Reese, and Sonny Styles too, has had to do with the fact that they've played a number of mobile quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza was kind of like that. Bryce Underwood before that was kind of like that. UCLA, they thought they were going to have that quarterback and then ended up not having that quarterback. But you've seen a bunch of mobile quarterbacks in the last games that have kind of mattered for Ohio State. And so they have to deploy one kind of defense against that type of offense. Carson Beck can run, but Carson Beck can run in the way that, he's probably a little more willing of a runner than Julian Sayin, but he's not Michael Vick. He's going to, against Notre Dame, for example, he had one run that I think he picked up a first down on 3rd and 7, but he had one run. Yeah. That's not, you don't need to game plan around Carson Beck's legs. You need to game plan around getting to Carson Beck. I would expect a more aggressive pass rush because they have been so concerned about caging is the term that they use. And just, you don't want your defense ends to get too far upfield because then you can create rush lanes and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about that quite as much when you don't have as much of a running threat at quarterback. And so I think that may allow Ohio State to be a little bit more aggressive with all the guys in that sort of front seven.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a game where you can make Arvell Reese more than just the guy that sets the edge or is watching for the scramble, spying. No reason to spy. You can either attack or just go play linebacker. We may actually see him playing some linebacker in this one rather than just being on the edge. But also, when he is on the edge, go after the quarterback. He's not had a tackle for loss since Purdue. That was November 8th. It's 4 games without a tackle for loss.
I'm going to make a bold prediction, Tony.
Oh, no.
He'll have at least one tackle for loss.
Going to need to be more than that. And hasn't had a sack since Penn State, so he's gone 5 games without a sack.
Tony, I'm going to make a bold prediction.
Because he went 4 straight games with 1.5, 1 at the start of the Big Ten season with at least a sack or a sack and a half. 5 straight games without getting to the quarterback. But then you look and it's, you got mobile guys in there that you're just trying to contain. And Arvell Reese is just 1/11th of the defense. And so he's doing his part and allowing others to do theirs. But also right now you have the opportunity to have him do more and be more a part of the disruption of this whole thing. He lines up on the defensive line a lot. You can allow him to be an edge rusher and get after the quarterback. You don't have to bring 5. You can drop somebody else off or however you want to do it, or go ahead and bring 5 because Carson Beck does not like to be blitzed or rushed. And so I do think that is yes, I'm going to say it, Tom, a winning formula to get Arvell Reese a little bit more aggressive defensively. You've got him. He's done well for everything that you wanted him to do so far this season, as evidenced by the fact that nobody has scored more than 16 points on you. And that was just one team. Holding Indiana to 13 points on what you did with that is fantastic. I think you got to do a little bit more with him in this one because it's a different quarterback.
Yeah. Ohio State had 2 games this season in which they did not record a sack. Can you name those games?
Was one Indiana? No.
They had 3 sacks in that game.
I will say not Texas. Let's say Purdue and UCLA.
Purdue and UCLA is eventually correct.
Wow.
But
first guess.
I think part of it is that. Part of it is that they have, in those games, I think they were playing a little more conservatively. And just not, oh boy, we're really scared about what Ethan Kaliakmanis is going to do with his legs, as much as how much do you need to put out there? Those were games that Ohio State had won as soon as the bus correctly found the stadium. So you don't need to put that much on film there. But I think it's the combination of, for Reese perhaps in particular, the fact that they've played quarterbacks who are running threat, but also this is the time of year when guys are banged up and no one is 100% on a football team. It would not surprise me if after the season we heard, Arvell Reese was playing through something, that because I would imagine his snap count is probably not quite as high. I've not gone back and looked at the game-to-game snap counts, but it feels like we've seen less of him at times in some of these recent weeks. It wouldn't shock me if he was playing through something or other. But yeah, I don't think there's anything. I don't think that the college football world has figured out Arvell Reese and figured out Matt Patricia, and there's nothing, like, oh, well, they're done. He's cooked. There's nothing left there. I think it's much more just situational. And this is a situation where you might see more from him. What did you find on the snap count? Am I correct or no?
Well, same number of snaps as Sonny Styles, basically.
Okay.
Like they're playing all of the snaps, other than when Peyton Pierce is in there. Even though then they're playing three linebackers, and not he's playing a bunch. But we've just seen him like just setting the edge, and just containing, and it's worked. But I think you'd like to see him use those skills and all of those talents to make life a bit more miserable for Carson Beck, to know, like, I know he's over there, but he's not coming after me.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I know he's over there and he's coming after me.
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
Right. Yeah. And you're doing your 1/11th can look like setting the edge. Don't let them, don't give up leverage. Don't give up outside leverage. Or it can look like, hey, he's eating the quarterback again. That your 1/11th can look like either of those things. I think you're going to see a more aggressive approach with Arvell Reese in a playoff. Next one from @81 Benny. How many times will we see Michael Irvin on the sidelines being dramatic? I say 10 plus. I will remind you, Tony, this game is being played in the home of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the number I had in my head is 14.5 as setting, but now it's like you're gonna have to go over that because it is the whole Cowboys thing. Now, is it just from the kickoff to the end of the game, or is this also, because I assume he's going to be on some sort of a pregame show?
Oh, I'm sure.
And does that count as one, or is it every camera cut? Because then we're getting into the 50s.
Well, he says on the sideline, so I assume the sidelines doesn't include the desk for the game day set.
Yeah, over 10 for sure.
Yeah, this feels like it's going to be a more annoying version of the Matthew McConaughey thing, where Matthew McConaughey is just kind of always just sort of standing there with his thumbs in his belt loops, and that's about it. And Michael Irvin is banging trash cans or whatever he's doing.
And it's like we'll get clips of that, and I'm sure when we do a rewatch of that game, be like, boy, it would have been nice to see a replay or see a player's reaction as opposed to Michael Irvin's thoughts on this or his reaction, or him just spanking a trash can with a belt, or doing whatever shenanigans that he's doing. You don't see that from any Ohio State former players, I don't think.
I don't think. Next one from Matt Old Pete 1926. I know you and Tom think that 2025 loss to Ohio State did not cost Texas a playoff spot, but the people here in Austin respectfully disagree. Does the OSU Brain Trust agree with you two or the people in Austin? And has there been any discussion there about trying to cancel the 2026 matchup? I believe they've affirmatively said, that's still happening.
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian said they have no interest in backing out of that game or buying out of that game. You've already gone and played at Ohio State, so now, like, you want your pound of flesh back. And here's why I know that the Ohio State loss did not cost Texas a playoff spot. That was one loss. That was they were and one after that game. There are other games where they were and two, and then there was a game where they were and three. And it's the game that made them and three that cost them that. Now, did they need to play Ohio State? No. Did they need to lose to Florida and Texas A&M?
Right. Yeah. No. They beat Texas A&M, but they lost to Florida. They lost to a four-win Florida. That's the game, because that's the game that kept them out of the SEC championship game. And if they made the SEC championship game, they would have been in. So, they lost to Ohio State, but just don't lose to.
Don't lose by 35-10 to Georgia. And that's the one that, I think that's the one that kicks them out, because that's their third loss.
Right.
In terms of, you can't possibly have a 3-loss team in the playoffs.
Unless they're roll tide.
Right.
Yes.
So it's the most recent loss, I think, that knocks them out. Again, do you need to play Ohio State? I think it's okay for college football to play those games.
Yeah. I mean, Alabama lost to a much worse team in week one, and everyone kind of was willing to hand wave that because it's just week one. And, I think you get a lot more credit for winning than you get negative credit for, I guess, debit for losing. That's probably, I think those are games where it's not one team gets 1.0 wins and the other team gets, a -1. It's really, you probably get, you're losing on the road by a touchdown to the number 1 team in the country or number 2 team in the country. That's a loss that I think a lot of people are willing to overlook. Ohio State went on the road and lost to Oregon, which ended up the number 1 team last year by 1 point. And that game didn't hold Ohio State back at all. It was when Ohio State lost to Michigan, 13-10, and it was a bad Michigan team. It was not nearly as bad a Michigan team as Florida was this year. But when you lose that's the one where they really punish you. You don't get punished really for losing to good teams. You get really hammered for losing to bad teams.
Also, you're Texas. You want all of this attention. You've got all of this attention. Arch Manning was the runaway Heisman favorite coming into the season. Texas, I believe, were they number 1 to start the season?
They were, yes.
And so again, another runaway, all eyes on Texas. That's the way they won it. But the problem is when all eyes are on you, they see you when you lose to Florida. They see you when you win at Kentucky by 3 points. They see you when you win at Mississippi State by 7. They're watching your games. They're seeing like, boy, this, like even watching the Texas A&M, like how did you lose to Eli Manning? Or Arch Manning, the way he was playing. And so they watched a lot of Arch Manning. They saw a lot of Arch Manning that was not very good. And when so much of the team is tied into how your quarterback looks in terms of how people think of you, when they're watching a lot of Arch Manning and everybody's watching a lot of Arch Manning and it doesn't look good, then like, boy, I don't want to give you any benefit of the doubt, even though they had a very good win against Oklahoma. Alabama, remember that gauntlet, that 4-game gauntlet against ranked teams? Now
ranked at the time.
And I think 2 of them are still ranked. But that's what people remember in terms of like that gauntlet versus I watched Texas. I don't think as many people watched Alabama as watched Texas.
Yeah.
And if they had watched more Alabama, I don't know that Alabama's in the playoffs.
Nah, maybe not. I do have a fun question for you. 65 AP voters in the preseason poll. 65. How many of the number 1 preseason voters, how many of the 65 preseason voters had their preseason number 1 team reach the college football playoff this year?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. So how many?
I will give you a hint that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, 6 teams had a preseason AP number 1 vote.
Okay. I will say 7.
13.
All right. Okay.
So Ohio State had 11 first place votes preseason. Georgia had 1. Oregon had 1. So 25 preseason votes for Texas, who didn't miss by much. 23 for Penn State, who fired their head coach before Halloween. 4 for Clemson, whose fans wanted their team to fire their head coach before Halloween. And then Georgia and Oregon each had 1. So, yeah, it is. We do that exercise every year with the Ralph Russo stat that, a certain number of AP, like 4 of the preseason top 5 are going to make the playoff and all that. And this year, the answer was that 2 of the preseason top 5 made the playoff.
Well,
and 2 of the preseason top 6 made the playoff, because Notre Dame was in there as well.
That's a good thing these people don't write or talk about college football for a living, Tom.
Only 2 preseason top 10 teams fired their head coach before the end of the season. LSU also in that group. So, you go into every season going, well, this stupid sport, it's too predictable. No.
Like even when the college football video game comes out every year, people will do their dynasties or just sim stuff, and it's like the craziest, stupidest stuff that you've ever seen. It's like, how's that any different than what we saw this year?
Number 1, Indiana Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl against big underdog Alabama with the Heisman Trophy winner playing for Indiana. Yeah. If you put that on a 2023 college football game and simmed 2 years forward, it's like, no, you need to put a patch on this. This is ridiculous.
Like Brian Kelly. He won't be anywhere next year, presumably.
Well, Michigan hasn't made a hire yet.
And we know that he has told Michigan, I wouldn't mind coaching there. So
Michigan said, we would.
The music has stopped. There's 6 chairs still in the middle of the room, and nobody's entered the room yet. Brian Kelly's just outside the door. It's like, I know they're going to super.
Any minute now. Next one from @OldPete1926. Before the A&M Miami game, you thought Miami would be tougher for Ohio State, given what you saw on Saturday, and considering that A&M would have had a home game at the Cotton Bowl. Have you reconsidered? I think matchup-wise, I still think Miami's a tougher matchup. Now, if you go from playing a probably functional road game to playing probably a functional, at least neutral site to maybe slight home game. So that's worth, that's home field is generally considered to be worth about 3 points. So you give it 4 because you're probably going to have a little bit of a crowd advantage there. So, okay, that's 4 points. I know what the point spread said, and the point spread said that Ohio State was going to be a 1 point bigger favorite against Miami than against Texas A&M. What about the Texas A&M defense made you think this defense can stop Ohio State from running the ball? And if Ohio State can run the ball, what makes you think that Ohio State's not scoring 38 points on that Texas A&M defense?
Yeah, I think the only thing is Texas A&M's defensive line would do more stunning and twists, and it's like this becomes this like, oh my gosh, thing with this Ohio State offensive line. But other than that, like, you can run on them, you can play action them, you can throw on them, as long as you're protecting the quarterback. And Ohio State's offensive line seems to be in a better spot. And we've seen this Texas A&M defense give up tons of points. I haven't really seen that from the Miami side of the defense giving up a bunch of points. So I also think there's more skill with the Miami offense. With Marcel Reed, Texas A&M quarterback, there's possibilities with him, but you also know that last throw could very well be going to the other team, just as we saw in the playoff game against Miami, where he marched them down in the final minute, but it was a bad throw and it was an interception, and that was Marcel Reed in a nutshell. And you can't necessarily trust him now with Carson Beck. Can you trust Carson Beck? The it's like, you trust him maybe a little more, but you also know that he still has wild throws in him. He has, as we talked about in a previous show, bait away throws where he just throws it up for grabs. So that's a scary thing as well. And the fact that he's now a 5th or 6th year guy still doing that, I think maybe that's a bigger concern than a redshirt freshman or a redshirt sophomore and Marcel Reed doing those sorts of things. But by this point in the year, none of them should. And Julian Sage shouldn't be doing it either.
Yeah, and just looking at SP Plus, Texas A&M is 1/10 of a point ahead of Miami. But the way Texas A&M is, offense ranked 7th, Miami's offense is ranked 16th. Texas A&M's defense is ranked 21st. Miami's offense is ranked 10th. You don't beat Ohio State with offense this year. You beat Ohio State by dragging them to hell, basically. You're the sea monster trying to reach up and pull them under and drag them into a 13-10 kind of game. I looked at that Texas A&M defense and went, if you're giving up 10 yards a carry to a running back on a day when the opponent can't throw the ball because of the wind, I have bad news about what's going to happen to you up against a better throwing opponent with better wide receivers on a fast, dry indoor track. Your crowd can't cover Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate for you. So that's where you sort of run into a problem. And I came away from that game thinking, I think this was, it was windy. We both said, I think, low scoring game. It was a lower scoring game than expected because of the conditions, but that was basically the game I was expecting.
Yeah. And I think I talked to you first I watched the Texas A&M game, and then we watched the Miami, Louisville? No,
Miami Pitt
game to get the most recent. And I watched the Texas A&M game first, and I thought, well, I'm picking Miami just based on how is Texas winning this game?
Yeah.
That was like my base. How is Texas winning this with Arch Manning throwing the ball all over the place, not running the ball very well? And it's like, this doesn't make sense. So clearly Miami's going to beat these guys. Now, did they beat them clearly? Well, I mean,
they beat them
by enough. A whole touchdown.
Yep. So there you go.
All right, then that will do it for this episode. We want to thank you all. Hit the thumbs up if you could. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. I wouldn't know why you haven't at this point. Thank you all for the questions. We are getting through them, and we're not just doing listener question shows from here to eternity. We will eventually have head to Dallas. We may already be there. Who knows? But we've got plenty of different shows for you as well. We're going to look at all sides of this, as you guys know, and as you guys would expect. So again, subscribe to the channel so you get all of those. That will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you later.